Okay, so these are some watches that I got at the flea market, and none of them work. I made a part 1 to this video, but they were different watches. There were these in here. I didn't really say much on them, but these are for parts and repair too. I got this one free, but nothing properly working. So basically what I'm going to try to do is this Snoopy watch, it's second hands, or technically the tennis ball, it's loose. So every time you go to set the time or move your wrist, it does that. It goes back and forth. This is not overwound, but it's just not running. Well, it runs and stops for maybe like half a second. This one's missing the crown, so I'm just gonna open it and see what the movement looks like. Probably not gonna fix that, not too worried about it. This one's overwound. This one was bought, it was probably bought here, but I found it overseas. So it has a bunch of corrosion and pitting on the case, so it's probably not worth fixing, but I just thought it would be cool to see what I could do with it. These stretchy bands, I don't really like them. I don't know if they're still popular, but I'm pretty sure they were really popular back in the 70s and 80s. They're not so much a pain to take off, but they're kind of ugly in my opinion. But they're practical though. Or I'm just not, I'm clearly not the best at taking off these bands. Normally they break too. That's another reason they break, and then you have to replace the whole band. And I guess I don't really have to take off the band here, but it'll be a lot smarter of me to do so. I don't think this is the original band for this watch anyways. I'm pretty sure it came maybe on like a blue or a brown leather or nylon strap. These were made in the 50s. See, it's running too. So it looks like it's a Timex movement. It's the same one that's in here. I've had this open. I'll open that so for reference. I've never had a Timex movement out though, so that could be a problem, but we'll see. These movements, they're mass produced. No one really services them. And I'm not sure how you really take out the crown. I'd like to try to fix it today, but if I can't, I think it'll be a good learning opportunity. It looks like the clutch is right there, and it looks like it's exposed, so maybe a lot of times when I work on these watches, they're already broken. And there's not much really to lose when you go to sell them. Like these Timexes are not really worth much. Normally there's a button you push, or on some Seikos, this little tiny lever. I don't know, I normally just work on Seiko movements. I haven't fixed one though with this. I know what they look like. There's a really small wire kind of looking thing that runs from that lever that's connected to the crown stem. Problem is, if I remove it, then I might not be able to get that back on. But it should be easy to take out though, that's the thing. I'm gonna see what happens if I remove this. Well, that's what happens. You lose it. No, you don't. I mean, I have another movement. That's the exact same one. I don't... Oh, yep. That's an odd looking stem. It looks like it was broken in half, even though it's not. It's just that small. Okay, well, I have a movement holder. 2, actually. I'm just gonna use this. Oh. Yeah. Okay. So you can see that this plastic disc, I don't have wooden tweezers, by the way, so I'm just gonna have to be really careful, came off. And it's pretty dusty too, so I'm going to clean it off. It's a pretty dial. And then this aligns like so. I'm guessing it's on, because it's moving. And it's not seeming to fall off when I blow it, so that was successful. I wonder if this crown stem, that's weird. I wonder how it, oh, weird. I'll pull out to see if I can set the time, but you can't really. So in order to put it back on, it looks like maybe that lever just locks into place. Yeah, and that little tiny wire goes under that, right next to the balance wheel. Okay. Let's see how long this takes. It'll be really useful if watches would be able to be magnetized. Because that way, if you lose a screw on the ground, then you can just easily pick it up with a magnet and not have to search for it with a light. The weird thing is that when watches get magnetized, they run faster. Which I don't know why. I'd think that they'd run slower. I don't know how that kind of stuff works though. Oh, whoops. I was working on a watch yesterday and I tried putting the part in to the other part like this first. And it ended up just flying halfway across the room. More of the desk. But I have had that happen before. Where it goes across the room. And you don't find it. This is probably not going to do anything, but I'm going to use a different pair of tweezers. It moved up. I'm not taking it back out because it was in the right hole. It moved. I wonder how they mass produce these things. Like, they must have some sort of special machine. Especially back in the 1950s and 60s, when some of these watches were made. Just how long it must have took just to get this one part on. I guess it's kind of like an assembly line or something. That was close. These tweezers are so small that I can pick up the part by putting it inside the little tiny hole. This is just so weird. Oh, I see what it does. It's kind of like a Y shape, and that locks into that little tiny plate there that's connected to that little tiny wire. I didn't even realize that that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was just screwing it back in. I was lucky. See if it works. Then I'll fix the case back. It's still wobbly. I don't think it had a, maybe it did have one. I wasn't looking. It had a movement ring. It winds. The crown sits flush with the case. Oops. The hands move. And the second hand does not wobble anymore. Good. Alright, well that's one of four. That was the only one that I wanted to get fixed. But we'll take a look at the other ones as well, considering that they have the same exact caliber and are made by the same exact brand. I didn't know that Timex made these. Maybe it's not Timex. I think sometime in the 70s or 80s, a lot of these watches were made in Hong Kong and overseas, and you'd be able to pick them up for really cheap in like department stores like Macy's, Montgomery Ward, Walmart, stuff like that. Like this is an example of one. This is not expensive at all. I would never even take it diving. A lot of these were made overseas, like really cheap. I guess the equivalent of that today would be walking into Walmart and maybe buying like a really cheap Casio, but still that's a name brand. But I think it'll be cool to go back in time and see some of these like really cheap watches, like not branded Timex, but like branded whatever this is. And then this one too, I haven't heard of a Dantas. I don't really hear of these too much. But moving on, I'm gonna try to open up this one. I'm pretty sure this was made sometime in the 40s. I forget what time Mickey Mouse came out, or when they started using that as like their trademark or something. But these were really popular. I'm pretty sure some of them were made by Timex, Ingersoll. I don't think Elgin made any, but all American brands. Probably some Hong Kong ones too. But these are pretty collectible. Oh, that's cool. I normally don't deal with watches like this because they're called monoblock cases. So you have to move the dial, the hands, the crown, and crown stem basically without scratching the dial, I think. But since it doesn't have a crown stem, it's just able to pull out like that, which is cool. So we'll take a look at the movement since it's easy. Yeah, that's nothing special. I do have a few old squirrel watches. That we can compare it to. This one's a Gruen very thin. I believe it's electric gold plated. It's not worth $20. This has that, because I guess you can see where I got them at flea markets. So yeah, this one's gold filled. And compared to this is a stainless steel US. And this is the movement. Very simple movement, just like two plates, balance wheel, very small balance wheel. Doesn't want to run. It looks like it was bent, like someone yanked out the crown stem. Let's see if I can get this open. So this was made during the same time as well. Men's watches didn't really start getting made with bands until like maybe the 30s or 40s. It was women's watches at first that adopted that style because men liked the pocket watches and they were easier to read. So the brands never really made any. This is also a monoblock case, or you have to remove the crystal, but I don't know if that's what they call them. Monoblock cases where you have to remove the crystal. But anyway, that's the movement to that, and this is a Gruen Curvex from the 40s, and you can just tell it's a gold movement. It's It's not, I think this is brass, this is stainless steel, and look how it's like curved with the watch face. It's not curved, the parts are laying flat, but I thought that was pretty cool. And the balance wheel on the older ones, I like how it has these like pieces that go into the side, so it's like adjustable or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is nothing special. I want to show in case you guys ever come across one at the flea market. But they're always cool to pick up. And there's someone always out there who's a Disney fan. It looks like this was made by Disney because it says Walt Disney Productions on the dial. Oh yeah, and there's the other part to the case where the crown stem sat. Oh, that sucks. It looks like you can actually put the crown stem in there now. But I don't have one, so. Alright, so moving on to the two official Timexes, besides the Snoopy one, which I think is a Timex. This is the ladies' Timex, this is a men's Timex. These are from the 70s, I believe. And you see these a lot. You can pick them up for like less than $5. But normally they're either overwound or they just don't run at all. But in this case, this is probably water damage or something like that. And this one, I don't know what's wrong with it. No, we'll open it up. I'm probably not going to fix it. Would you look at that? That's like a 2-piece case as well. Be careful with this one. So yeah, it's the same style of movement. It's like 2 plates, the balance wheel, the mainspring, the caliber number, which is hard to read. These are very simple. Yeah, it's the one that I worked on last time that I couldn't get that balance wheel and the pallet fork, I think they call it, back on. Speaking of Timexes, here's another Timex that runs. I'm curious to see what this movement looks like. I had trouble opening it last time. I guess I'll move on. But yeah, I guess if I were to diagnose this, clearly the mainspring it looks like it's out of place and it has a bunch of corrosion on it. I don't know if that shows up on camera. So this one's probably not worth fixing, but if you were to fix it, I'd replace that. And then the balance wheel, it doesn't run when you shake it at all. And it's overwound, so I'm guessing the mainspring inside of there is rusted. And then for this one, probably replace the balance wheel as well. I don't know what they really use as that like little tiny hairspring thing in there. Does it even have one? I mean, it has to have one. Oh yeah, it does. You gotta be careful with those, they break. The mainspring looks fine. Oh, that's weird. The dial, it's not glued on, but it clips on. But it looks like there's some glue residue right here, where like the movement is glued to the plate that sits on, that the dial sits on. That's weird. I've never seen that. If you ever want to know the reference for a Timex, it's always at the bottom of the dial down here. That's how I get it. But I guess that's really it for the watches, considering that none of these work. So thanks for watching, and look forward to the next video. See ya.